by M1 EP Management Corporation, by Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. And now, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Today is June 25th, and today we're talking about some of the history of agriculture in the larger Borderland area, including farming and growing of food in what is now New Mexico for more than what we're calling it 4,000 years, and how New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum has exhibits and programs focused on the area's ancient and more recent agricultural history. You can, of course, find us on air, online, live streaming on KTSMradio.com, and with full video on the El Paso History Radio Facebook page and YouTube channel, as well as up here shortly, hopefully should be, on the Remember in El Paso When Facebook page. This is also the place where we say Texas history begins in El Paso. And we're taking that mission a little bit further than usual today, talking about the larger region. So we, of course, do have a history moment today on hour 2 from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk, talking about some of what has happened in other parts of the county, including what is going on with the Agriculture Museum. Sorry, not the Agriculture, the Archaeology Museum. Agriculture on the mind here today, as we have some people already chiming in with us over on the social media. But of course, joining us here in studio today, we do have the museum history curator, Leh Tookey. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Happy to have you all on, because this is an area of history that I feel on this program in general we haven't necessarily ignored. I mean, it affects a lot of when you're talking about roots and beginnings in this region, and even why there were some of the currents that have come through, whether it be the settlements of the ancient peoples prehistorically, of the more modern recorded history peoples, of the colonizations and even railroads and things like that. It all revolves around the fact that people could live here on their own before there were any other modern things, and that takes a few very specific things, including, of course, not being quite as hot as some other places in the world are, water, and of course the ability to grow and eat things. So this is literally foundational in my mind.
I agree. And water, of course, is a major issue there. Mm-hmm. So you find most of the people in New Mexico living along the Rio Grande River during the ancient period of time.
Yeah, so the development of that and the ways you can see, again, patterns of settlement, of habitation, and even the places where things have changed, such as, again, broadening even more the idea of regionality. Mesa Verde is a site that is both fascinating and interesting, but even a little bit more closer to home, such as like the Gila River dwellings, things like that, shows that there have been, different ways. I mean, people in general across history seem more or less willing to give it a go just about anywhere, but able to do it successfully long term. That takes, well, some things outside of besides just sheer determination. Right. I guess you could say it takes those very specific requirements.
I agree.
So that is something that you all focus on, of course, at the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum, because a lot of the things going on it, and Steve Ivey reminding us, yes, Los Portales does have some of it as well. We had them on in previous weeks because they focus on it, but I will be perfectly honest with you, having been to the Farm and Ranch Museum myself, but never actually been going through the exhibits. It's always been for events. I'm going there to use y'all's great event space, and I'm always then ever so slightly late to whatever the event is, because I'm then lingering a bit by the exhibits, because I've never gotten to truly spend the time just perusing through it. So I'm personally excited to have you all on to talk about this a little bit more in depth. But I also fall a little bit victim to because the way you all are placed, you are in Las Cruces, but I have this idea in the back of my mind that you all are out in the middle of nowhere, off the beaten path, because you all are very well positioned right next to the larger actual, settled and dense area of town, but you are well placed and well plotted out to, again, focus on the issues of, well, how agriculture even works now.
We're kind of on the edge of town. We have housing surrounding us on 2 sides, I believe, and then we have a mountain is pretty close to us, and Centennial High School has sort of encroached on our view, but we like them, so that's okay. So, but we're in a great spot. We have 40 some acres. I always get that wrong. 40 plus acres of land. We have, we call it the South 20, where we have our animals, livestock, and Also a little bit of agricultural land out there,
Mhm.
and plus a large building, several buildings. But we have the Bruce King building where we have our major exhibits. So it's a lovely space, lots of shade, lots of nice places to sit and relax, and just a really great place to visit.
Absolutely. So we're popping up some of the pictures of some of the initial things, starting off with, of course, the grounds, as you were mentioning, because those are pretty significant on their own right, but as well as just some of the exhibits, including one that this is probably the one that caught my eye the most, that I remember the most from one of the first times I went there. This large, well, stone, technically and literally it is, but it's a bit more significant than that.
It is. That's a French mill grist stone, and that grist mill stone was donated to the museum from it was a bank, and now it belongs to a medical care. I don't know exactly what they do organization, but that had been in their parking lot since 1976. It was placed there in honor of the centennial year, and was that the bicentennial year? Sorry, and they were tired of it. I guess it wasn't in very good condition. They weren't taking care of it. It was starting to deteriorate. So they asked the museum to take it. So we did. And we had an empty hallway that came up right after we got that stone. So we decided to do an exhibit on grist mills. Grist mills, of course, were very important in New Mexico before automation. For about every 40 families, you needed to have one grist mill to supply enough ground flour and cornmeal to eat. So there were more than 400 grist mills in New Mexico at one time at the height of the industry. The first grist mill was brought to New Mexico from Don Juan de Oñate. He got here, and he was Spanish, of course, and the Spanish were used to eating wheat flour products, wheat bread. And here in New Mexico at that time, people ate cornbread, or they ate corn. They ate corn in whatever method they cooked it at that time, and he didn't like it. So he wrote he called home. No, he wrote home and said, I need some wheat seed in a grist mill. And they sent it to him, and they started growing wheat and grinding it in New Mexico. And the rest of, as they say, is history. I hope I don't say that too many times today.
I mean, it fits because we're talking about all of that here. So again, we are focused on the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum and all the parts that come into it. So talking about the aspects of it, because of course the history even before that, because we did mention that 4,000 years, and people may be thinking, wait, Don Juan de Oñate, we're talking on the order of hundreds of years at that point. But of course, the history of agriculture, you're talking about what people did before that point. I mean, the Pueblo cultures and the native cultures that were permeating this area had their own particular ways. I mean, I know one of the more fascinating aspects that I think about is that concept of the three sisters that gets talked about at that time, that companion growing of the corn, of the beans, and of the squash.
Right.
And it's not that there wasn't any processing necessarily even happening of those. It wasn't like straight farm, what we call now farm, field to table, or just field to mouth, as people may think. They did their own processing. I mean, you can go through sites even regionally, such as like Waco tanks or some of the petroglyphs and pectograph fields out there, and find often, the ancient metates, essentially, what they were using to grind it in their own way. Though my understanding is that I'm glad we don't do that anymore, because that was a little hard on the teeth with the spare bits of stone ending up in there.
Yes, it was. And I would suspect on the gut as well, because, but yes, it was very hard on the teeth. And right. So the early people in New Mexico, the Mogollon, the early periods, those people actually created corn. They hybridized corn, like we call it hybridization today. They took a grain and they continually bred it until they had corn. So that's what they ate at that time. And of course, grinding corn was difficult, took a lot of work. And like you said, it wasn't probably very good on their teeth. And corn and wheat, I think this is a really interesting thing. You can't grind wheat with a mano and a metate. It doesn't work, because you can't make it fine enough to let the gluten loose in order for it to rise, in order for it to make bread like we know bread. And so a grist mill is actually a different process. It's not, we think about a grist mill as grinding, like smashing wheat grains, but what it really does is slices it. So it slices it open, and that releases the gluten, and that's the difference between corn, why cornbread doesn't rise unless you put something else in, but wheat has that gluten in it that will help it to rise.
You know what? That's kind of fascinating stuff, and why I end up finding myself again anytime I'm in the building lingering a little bit longer, because there's always something I don't know particularly about this. I mean, I've not exactly lived in like New York City, but I definitely have not lived like truly country, worked on a farm. I dealt with horses some in my life, but this is a lot of stuff outside of my experience area. And again, even just looking on, frankly, the face of that grist mill stone there, you notice that there, if you were to look very closely at it, it's not just a flat stone. It's not just moving around. There are channels. There are ways that it works. Again, that French style you're talking about is very critical for its actual operation. It's not just an interesting pattern, like why not kind of thing. It's very purposeful.
So that French cut grist mill, can you open that up just a little bit, like focus in on it, because you can see it's several different stones. I believe ours, I can't remember exactly. I think it's 21 stones maybe.
I'd believe you.
And so it was actually, it's called a French grist mill because it comes from France, and comes from a specific place in France. And when I did this exhibit, I could have told you the name of the place and all the specifics, but it's been a couple years ago, and I tend to move on and forget old information and get new. But they could send those over here in pieces to the Americas, or to America. It was in the I believe the 19th century when they started bringing those here. And so those are quite different than the old. If you could look kind of in the back of that photograph, you'll see a black, there's a black stone in the back there. And that is actually a basalt stone that comes from, the volcanic eruptions, what's left over from volcanoes.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And those were made by local people and carved out, but they always have to have a pattern of like you said, cuts on the top, and that's the whole slicing rather than mashing. So it's very interesting. You need to come and read all about it. And that one is in the hallway, and you can see that for free if you're there for an event. So
yep, and that's why
you remember it.
Been late to the events as well, because I am then lingering and reading and like, wait, no, I have to go down the hall further here to the back space. So we are talking about that and the history of that in this area, because again, it is very interesting on a lot of these aspects. Again, guest right now here in studio with us is Leh Tookey, the museum history curator for the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. For people who want to visit here, who may have gotten the spare description we got of where it's located, if they want to go there, what are the hours, what are the times, how should they find y'all?
Well, right now we are open Monday through Saturday. We open at 10 o'clock in the morning and we close at 4. Oh, golly, directions. I know that you were going to ask that, and that's one of the things I didn't get. You just you have to get on University. If you get off on the University exit and you go back towards the Oregon Mountains, it's on Dripping Springs Road, 4100. Here, you just put it in your GPS, 4100 Dripping Springs Road. And you can't miss it. There's a big windmill that's right out in the front, and a great big sign. And if you drive by it, well, you'll know you drove by it, so you'll just need to turn around and come back.
Yeah,
so
it's an impressive place. And again, essentially, if you're coming from particularly the El Paso side of things, you're, of course, head up I-10, but make sure you hit I-25 then and do that split.
Right.
Don't continue out towards Deming, because you're definitely going the wrong way that way here. So again, great ways to visit it. And we're going to talk more about some of the specific exhibits that you all got here, and as well as, some of the things people can do to get involved, and some of the programming that you all do and work on. But of course, we got a lot of comments that are coming in right now over on the social media, including Steve Ivy, Monica Cervantes from up in Las Cruces, Flaco Jimenez, George Sanchez, Robert Haynes, telling us that his dad grew pistachios near Tularosa, New Mexico here. Yep. As well as, again, the mention of the Los Portales, yes, previous guest on here, El Bush. Good morning there. Andy Salazar from Pueblo West, Colorado. Keith Wilden out with the Sun City Amateur Radio Club. Quick plug for them. They're out doing their field day today. Technically kicks off at noon for them, but they're out there at their clubhouse day. So find them online at k5wph.org if you're interested in that. And a lot more, including Rick Nahara from the Remember in El Paso When Facebook page, Mark Morales from Alameda, California chiming in, as well as Rosie Rodriguez from El Paso, and a whole lot more. So thank you all for tuning in. We're going to get into more of these subjects and history after we take this next break here on the El Paso History Radio Show. Again, talking all about some of the agricultural history and the museum that showcases it in our area. So stay tuned. More on the El Paso History Radio Show here from more on News Radio 690 KTSM.
M1 EP Management Corporation is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, invest in real estate. M1 EP manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the website, m1ep.com. M1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call 915-592-4549. 915-592-4549. El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso.
While the world bickers over why prices are so high, you drift on over to your happy place. We've got your shot at $1,000 with Inflation Vacation. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Bank for Your Tank is brought to you by the El Paso Zoo Society. Take a rock on the wild side. Rock and Roar Music Festival, July 2nd at the El Paso Zoo. 2 music stages, a silent disco, arcade games, and so much more. Get tickets at elpasozoosociety.org.
As a marketer, you want to reach everyone, adults, teens, millennials, but it's not like these groups all hang out in the same place, right? Actually wrong. They're all right here, listening to radio commercials just like this one. Radio ads connect with 93% of Americans every week. That's more than Google, more than Facebook, more than TV. In fact, radio reaches 20% more millennials than TV. Want more of the people you want to talk to all in one place? Visit iHeartAdvertising.com and get AM/FM working for you. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Are you suffering through the summer with high energy bills and a home that never cools down? The Get It Right Solar Show can show you how to save money with a Lumio solar system. The best panels at the best price, and you will receive a free generator when you install a new solar system with Lumio Solar. Call right now, 866-326-1935. That's 866-326-1935. And join us this Saturday at 9 a.m. to learn more on the Get It Right Solar Show.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate. 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Doniphan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Tookey, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
We are, of course, the El Paso History Radio Show on Facebook, and you can go there to find our weekly promo announcements for the topics of each program and, of course, the upcoming ones. Also over on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/El Paso History TV. That's where you can find the entire series of El Paso Gold DVDs from Capstone Productions, covering 20-plus years of history development in town and, of course, coverage of the subjects on their end. Fully uploaded for free for your viewing pleasure, plus the recent 20 segments of our ABC7 series from El Paso History TV, all of that available over there. And of course, reminders to support some of our advertisers. Pepe's Restaurant in Canutillo, open for in-house dining, 6761 Doniphan Drive. You can call Pepe's at 915-877-2152. That's 877-2152, and the home of the one and only margarita, keeping some of the great old Griggs recipes alive and very much popular out there. I'll be headed out there after the show here, and we are, of course, still joined here in studio by Leh Tookey, with a curator with the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. Welcome to join us out there as well, if you don't have to get immediately back to the museum, though we understand it entirely. Good group of people sometimes come out there and like to talk with people, but we've been talking, of course, about some of the exhibits at the museum, what we got going on. I just want to put a pin in some of the conversation we had initially about just the, well, growing is one thing, but then making it useful is another. So those different mills, the point that you made about it being a bunch of smaller stone kind of smashed together, kept nicely together, just because, I mean, we're talking about, how much did that weigh?
A lot. I don't have any idea how much it weighs.
This is not, there was a smaller one in the background that probably a few people could have moved,
Right.
but the main one, the huge one, we're talking pretty quickly, you get on the order of magnitude of tons, right?
Of course, it was in pieces, and that's the point of it. that
Exactly.
and it was held together with a metal band and also with plaster of Paris, which
Really?
seems really weird, but that's
Yeah.
what they used because it was from France. And so I don't understand the technology as well as I probably should, but it is put to, our curator or the fabricator at the time built this lovely stand for it and put it together, and but it could have been taken apart to be moved, and that's kind of what was unique about it, because the other ones, of course, you did need 2 or 3 people to help pick them up because they were very heavy.
So movable in a gotta take it apart and figure out how you're gonna get it there kind of way. So not
Right.
exactly quote unquote portable, as we'd say from the modern standpoint, but pretty close for the time frame.
And once you put it in its place in the mill, you didn't need to take it out and move it around again, because it was its permanent place, and it could be groomed. They would groom them. They would sharpen them, I guess is how you would say it. And that's all in the exhibit, to understand that they could do that right in place, so that's what they did. They would hire somebody to come in, and if the local person didn't know how to do it, and take care of the stone and make it sharp again, and because it would wear down after so long, and so it didn't need to be moved once it was in place in the mill itself.
Yep.
And another interesting thing about grist mills in New Mexico, now that I'm thinking about it, is that most of the grist mills you think about, you've seen the Christmas cards from Massachusetts or Connecticut with the big round vertical grist mills. The water running over the mill or the wheel to move the grist mill stones. Well, in New Mexico, because we don't have big water in New Mexico, most of the grist mills in New Mexico, there's a few exceptions, but most of them they used the Spanish style of mill stone or mill wheel that was horizontal. So the wheel was down in the arroyo or in the acequia. And so the water moved it around horizontally instead of vertically, and the stone was above it. Where on the eastern version that you see on Christmas cards, the wheel was outside the building usually.
That kind of water wheel looking thing people are used to seeing.
Went through the river or the creek or whatever it was that there was enough water pressure to move those big wheels. In New Mexico, we didn't have that, so it's a totally different technology, basically.
And it's also interesting the way, particularly brought it up there, that it takes a couple dozen families can be supported by each one. There wasn't exactly grocery stores back then. There were places that in particularly some more of the more settled areas you can go out and just buy it, but essentially when you're talking about the agricultural history of the area, that's where you went to essentially ensure your food supply, which is also why more than a little bit names of mills and other places like it tend to show up in, shall we say, conflict history, because if you're looking to come into an area and either establish control or deal with those who were living there in some way, and again, the more modern era, mills were, you knew people were, that was a serious way of control. And while you're often talking about, I remember accounts from, say, the Civil War, not exactly in our area, but in other places across the country, that often mills were either visited or fought over or focused on in general.
Sure. I mean, that's competition, right? That's capitalism at work. So, so yes, I'm sure that's true. I can't think of any. I'm not sure. Like I'm thinking about the Lincoln County War, and was there a mill involved? I don't remember reading about a mill involved in that. Where they had the grocery store or the mercantile, like not grocery store, but a mercantile. The Tunstall store, and they were kind of fighting over that kind of power, basically what that is. And so like I said, it took one grist mill for every 40 families,
Right.
So there maybe, I don't know for sure, but it's possible that there wasn't a lot of, we're happy to get a new grist mill in the area. Well, there were several just in the Mesilla Valley, of course, and the big French stone comes from the Shablin mill, which was right downtown on the Sequia Madre. So and where it was at the bank was pretty close to where it actually was. So
fascinating here. So again, we are talking right now with Leh Tookey, curator for the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Museum. We are going to keep talking about this and some more of the other exhibits, including talking about going from the time of, well, among other things, this technology to some very advanced technology with the home on the range ranches to rockets here. But we've got to take that next break right now. So we'll get into that and more after this break with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Doniphan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the Juan and only margarita from the Cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Doniphan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
New on Curiosity Stream, he allows them their riches
Putin has to be the richest of the rich
in exchange for their loyalty.
The oligarchs have supported someone for president that they underestimate.
The illicit affair between Russia's elite and the man who rules them on Putin and the oligarchs. And World War II Normandy, an obscure battle training session takes a tragic turn. Uncover the one secret military catastrophe on the secret D-Day disaster. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. Less than 1% of water on Earth is drinkable, and humans are using it faster than nature can replenish it. Reduce the amount of water you use in the bathroom by taking shorter showers and turning the water off while you brush your teeth. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/M1EP.com.
Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
If you're fed up with cable news, it's time for Greta Van Susteren. Greta is back with the real news on Newsmax. Tune in at 6 p.m. Eastern tonight to watch The Record with Greta Van Susteren and our new lineup with Rob Schmidt, Eric Bowling, and more. Newsmax is on all major cable systems and streaming platforms. Or download the free Newsmax app on your phone. Watch Greta Van Susteren tonight. Make the switch to Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, beat the largest timeshare company in federal court and has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-408-4040. That's 800-408-4040.
The uh-ohs are out there. Scratches, dents, unexpected natural events. But with Mako and their magic, your car is no longer tragic. So when life throws you uh-ohs, just say,
better get Mako.
And go to Mako.com to book your appointment today.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Whether you're working in an office or remote, Staples has your tech.
New AirPods so I can turn up the music and tune out distractions.
Staples has your tech.
A Wi-Fi extender for faster downloads? A portable keyboard so I can work from anywhere.
Staples has you covered with tech solutions and accessories, from the latest laptops to networking solutions. And now Apple AirPods Pro are just $199. You save $50. The latest tech solutions are at Staples, the working and learning store. N625 limit 2 while supplies last.
One tap on the talkback mic inside the free iHeartRadio app could get you tickets to our legendary iHeartRadio Music Festival in Vegas this September. First, download the free iHeartRadio app. Second, open the iHeartRadio Music Festival station playing the artists from this year's iconic lineup. Third, tap the talkback mic and send us a message for who you're excited to see take the stage this year.
App editor and Neil Giraldo.
You'll be entered to win tickets for both nights of our world-famous iHeartRadio Music Festival.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Tookey, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Got to tell you about some of our great partners in promoting local history and experiences. Of course, you got to go and check out celebrationofourmountains.org. That's celebrationofourmountains.org, where they have some great tours, tips, and talks about some of the many natural and modern features of the region. And they got a whole slew of events going on. If you haven't been out to some of the previous ones, you definitely need to go out and check out their website, celebrationofourmountains.org, where they have them all very well detailed out. Some of the ones coming up here, looking towards September here already, because we're getting to that very, very hot time of the year. They'll have stuff during July, but some of the ones that they'll be getting into, of course, in September, one that if I could make it out to, I might, would be the fossils of Mount Cristo Rey with Eric Kappas, because if you want to talk about someone who has some of the most knowledge about that whole set of features, and among other things was the discoverer of such, he's a great person for that, as well as a lot of other things, including Black Mountain, Fossils in the Walls, Church of St. Clement, and Kilburn Hole a little bit later in the year. Again, the full list of events they got going on. They're not all outdoors. Don't worry. You can find one that you might like there. Is also, again, celebrationofourmountains.org. And also our friends at Monterey Asset Management. You may have noticed they've changed their name to M1 EP Management Corporation. Their website, m1ep.com. That's m1ep.com. You can go them if you're tired of the, well, particularly investments right now. If you're looking at those and wondering what you might want to do otherwise than the stock market or any of those rat races, consider them with their property investment and property management. Again, m1ep.com, or give them a call at 915-592-4549. But joined here back in studio again with Leh Tookey, the curator of the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. We have been talking about a lot, and a lot of people expressing their interest, including William Henry Mee, about the French grist stone, with interesting write-up on his own idea of, and some of the history of the Agua Fria village that he's in. Also, Barbara Given-Beatty mentioning that one of the founding members was Rob Cox, grandson of W.W. Cox there. So a lot of people chiming in with some of their memories over on our social media. But so we've been talking a bit about the farming side of it here, but of course, another critical part of that name here, and this, again, once you get slightly more modern, but not necessarily not present in any other part of history, the ranching side of it. Because what happens when you can't necessarily trust you can grow something in an area, which, again, next to the Rio Grande, sure, there's more possibilities, but getting a little bit further out with those areas that are not necessarily as available. Like if you're dependent on the rain out here, you're going to have a bad time for the most part. And so ranching is what has come up with that. And you'll have a very interesting exhibit that both talks about that in its own right, but also shows we got this great picture of the windmill in the front and this very much more modern technology literally blasting off behind it. And that's one of y'all's exhibits that you have now, of course, at the museum, the Home on the Range, from Ranches to Rockets, taking that double entendre of the range idea there. So what is this exhibit about?
Well, it's interesting that somebody brought up W.W. Cox, because this exhibit actually part of this exhibit is the story of the Cox Ranch. I mean, they're part of this exhibit. So the exhibit actually, it started a long time ago. I used to work at the Space Museum in Alamogordo, and I was real interested. I'd gotten to do a tour of White Sands, and with a family who had lived out there before World War II, and before it was the missile range. And I was real interested in the whole idea of ranchers and the people that lived out there before the missile range. And of course, I worked at a space museum, and so they weren't as interested in agriculture as I was. And so several years later, I got a job at the Farm and Ranch Museum, and I sort of had that on the back of my mind, but I hadn't really thought about it much. And one day, somebody dropped off a package of photographs at the front desk, and for me, and I went up and I opened that packet up, and that photograph that you see there was the first thing I saw. And I looked at that photo, and it kind of just shocked me, I guess. And I thought, oh my God, this is the photograph for my exhibit that I've wanted to do for so long, because that is the juxtaposition of that windmill sort of deteriorated in the front, and then that is a Redstone rocket in the back, which is sort of the early stages of the Mercury program and the space program. And it is not a photoshopped photograph. That is an actual photograph taken by a gentleman who was the official photographer at White Sands Missile Range for 30 some years.
Wow.
And so I looked at that photo and I thought, we can do this. And of course, so I got together with Jim Eccles, who is kind of a pretty well-known person in the Las Cruces area. He was the public relations officer at White Sands Missile Range for 30 years.
Yeah.
And he's written a book called Pocket Full of Rockets, which is about life on the range before and after the military comes. And so I talked to him and asked him if he would co-curate this exhibit with me. And so we got busy, and we were just going to tell the story of the ranches and what life was like out there before the missile range. And we had some ideas, and we knew what we were going to talk about. And then, as sometimes happens, other people at the museum got mixed into the discussion, and they wanted to tell both sides of the story. And so I was a little bit intimidated, because I worked at the Space Museum, so I probably knew more than a lot of people who do agriculture, but I was a little intimidated by the topic. But I had Jim, and I knew he was a great source, a great resource for all that knowledge. And so we did both sides. So we, when you first walk into the exhibit, you learn all about the different ranchers, not about all of them, but we have some exemplars. We have 4 exemplars, and the Cox Ranch is one of those. The idea that they were able to actually hang on to part of their land is pretty interesting, because most people didn't.
Right.
We talk about the Lucero brothers. Everybody in Las Cruces knows the Lucero brothers. They were deputy sheriffs, and were involved in a lot of the crime and kind of important figures. But they had ranches out at White Sands, and they were really good at bringing water to their cattle. They were raising cattle. And so we use them as an exemplar to talk about the water, getting water to that source at White Sands. And we have a couple other families. We use the oral histories that were done back in the 90s from a local organization and local archaeological organization that are at White Sands Missile Range in their museum. So we tell that side of the story. We have an actual a house in the exhibit that we built, which is approximately the same size as a house that is still standing at White Sands that you can see. You could go out and see it if you can get a tour, and you can. It's very small. When students go through there, they'll say, well, where's the bathroom? And we always have to tell them the bathroom was outside, and we didn't.
Wherever you like
exactly. And there's a bed in the same room as the kitchen, and they don't understand that. And so we explain all that. We talk about, medicine and school and entertainment and making do, which is what these ranchers were doing. They loved this land. It was dear to them. They worked hard. It was not an easy life. But they made it good. They made it good for themselves. And then we move into a section of the exhibit that talks about 1942 and what happens in 1942, Pearl Harbor. And the military was even before Pearl Harbor, they were looking for places to train. It was actually the British Air Force, and in all over the United States. It wasn't just in New Mexico. But when Pearl Harbor happens, they say, they decide we've got to train our own military, our own Air Force. And so they looked around and they found several places in New Mexico where they set up training grounds for these, bombers and these planes that they were flying. And one of them just happened to be, at White Sands. And so we tell that story. And then we have a blockhouse, which is a replica of one of the blockhouses at White Sands where they tested the V2 rockets.
Right.
You walk through that, and we actually have a photo on the wall that's blown up to that was actually taken in the blockhouse, so you feel like you're inside the blockhouse. And then you walk through. We have a little bit about the bomb because it's sort of the elephant in the room. And I would have rather not told the story because it's everybody knows the story about White Sands and the bomb and
and the Trinity site.
Exactly, everybody knows that story, but because it is so important, we did spend some time there. But what we want people to know is that White Sands Missile Range, the bombing range, was not created to test the bomb. The bomb was sent there because they knew that it was a big space, there wasn't a lot of people, and it would be an easy place to kind of to test it, and not very many people would know, and it probably wouldn't hurt anybody too much. So it was not created for the bomb. The bomb was tested there after it was already in place. And then we talk about the V2, which was the German vengeance weapon, which Werner von Braun created, and was using for the Germans the Blitz, the buzz bomb that we talk about when you're studying World War II. And it was built. The V2 was actually built in concentration camps. They were using Jewish or they were using prisoners to build it. And then after the war, what happens is Operation Paperclip. Many people know that story. They brought all those rocket scientists to the United States. They had the choice. They could either go to Russia or they could go to the United States. And for some reason, they chose the United States.
Some had a choice anyway.
I think they made a good choice.
On the balance, they tended to come here. Yeah.
Right. They came here. And they also brought 400 train loads of parts.
Right.
To Las Cruces, to the Tularosa Basin, all the parts that were used to make the V2 rocket. And so they set up shop, and they started doing experiments and doing science, and they created, that's where the space program, of course, was born. And it's my thesis. I always say that if this was a research paper, if it was a master's thesis, the thesis would be that if it hadn't been for the V2 rockets, the White Sands Missile Range might have gone away after the war, because that's what the military thought would happen. And that's what they told those ranchers. When the war's over, you can have your land back. But of course, they started this work on the V2, and one thing led to another. And pretty soon they decided this was too important for the future of the country to just let it go. So they kept it. And of course, the story tells about what happens to a lot of those ranchers and the fight to keep their land. And, and then it also tells kind of the end piece is all about what goes on at White Sands today, and all the technology and the science, and, testing the creation of the seatbelt happened at White Sands Missile Range. So anyway, that's what the exhibit is about. I think it's very interesting. We have artifacts. We have a V2 rocket. We have, like I said, a ranch house. Just lots and lots of interesting pieces, and lots of great photography. These photographs that when they did this oral history project back in the 90s, they collected all these family photographs on the ranch side, and we've used as many of those as we possibly can. Wow. I'm a big believer that a lot of people like to look at photographs, and so and then we got photos from the the Space Museum in Alamogordo and from the missile range and from different places for the science side. So it's a good exhibit. It tells a great story.
Absolutely. So this may be, again, one of the more striking photos of the collection there, but it's by no means, as you're saying, the only one. There's a lot more there, but this, again, kind of pretty well encapsulates everything we're talking about in this for this exhibit, going from one era of technology and purpose of the area to a very, very different one over the course of, well, initially years, but then now, of course, generations.
And one thing that Jim likes to say, a point that he points out is that these were the same kinds of people. The ranchers on the ranch side were the same kind of people as those early scientists and military people who came to set up the missile range and to do the science there. They were innovative, they were intuitive, they had to make do. And because this was the very first missile range ever created. The military guys that were there that set it up, they had to do it from scratch. They didn't know what they were doing, and they had to create the missile range from scratch. And so it's the same kind of people, these hardworking and determined kind of people.
Again, that's a Redstone rocket in the picture, but of course, some of the initial testing you mentioned there with V2s, having visited some of those facilities out there in that area, particularly their museum, that you can get to, though it's a little bit tricky given whatever might be going on with security requirements at any particular time. A story of one of those blockhouses, how once they finally got some of the equipment, some of those train loads, and set up their first V2, they launched it straight up and then realized they couldn't see it, so all ran outside to see it and realized we launched it straight up, it's coming straight back down, and then ran back inside the blockhouse, and then realized, oh, we need to do a slight bit of an angle for future testing here, guys. Straight up and straight down is a bad plan.
Bad plan, but they did have I think it's oh gosh, I don't have it in front of me, but the roof of the blockhouse was like, I want to say 20 feet thick, but that may be the roof and the walls of the blockhouse were very thick, and intentionally for that. And we actually have a video that you can watch while you're there, and it's sort of like you're in the blockhouse looking outside, which is what they were doing, because they had these slits in the walls where they could watch. And you can watch experiments and several oopses, they call them oopses.
Yeah.
when the rocket didn't do what it was supposed to do and did explode, and they did land. There was one that landed in Alamogordo. It actually landed on a hill outside of Alamogordo. One that landed in Juarez, and they didn't actually ever kill anybody, but they came pretty close. So,
yep.
So, and White Sands was actually, they were trying to use they were letting some of the ranchers back, and they called it co-use. And then they realized, because they were doing all this testing and these things were pretty dangerous, that wasn't going to work. And so that co-use period was pretty short-lived, and then they were not able to go back out there. But
yeah, no, definitely a lot of history of that area. We are overdue for that next break right now. Keep getting into these stories. We're going to come back real quick and tell you what we're going to talk about the next segment here on the El Paso History Radio Show. Again, still joined here in studio by Leh Tookey, curator for the Museum of the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. So back after this break with more on the El Paso History Radio Show.
M1 EP Management Corporation is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, invest in real estate. M1 EP manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call 915-592-4549, 915-592-4549.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We make car buying fast, fun, and easy. And due to high demand, we need trades. So we'll do whatever it takes to get you out of your old vehicle into a new car, truck, or SUV today.
Even if you owe thousands more than your trade is worth, we want it, so you can get huge savings on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. For a limited time, get $4,000 off MSRP on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating and up to $7,000 off select new Ram trucks. Super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Dodge Charger. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make the Switch event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles. 0 down with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Don't let breakfast be boring when it could be better.
Wendy's Breakfast Baconator will have you feeling sunny side up all day long. Wake up to fresh cracked eggs, savory sausage, and oven-baked bacon, of course. Order it and start looking forward to tomorrow morning at participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours only.
Make this the year you go to our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com.
iHeartRadio, let's go! A weekend full of superstar performances, never seen before collaboration, and once-in-a-lifetime moments you'll have to see to believe.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday the 24th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Buy your tickets now at AXS.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Tookey, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. A couple other things we've got to mention to you. We do have, of course, Rick Curran's music podcast, Talk and Rock Radio, doing some great focus on some of the musical aspects of history in our area. In its own right, it's not exactly totally history, but, well, we like to call it that from this vantage point anyway. But he's talking about a lot of the stuff that happened in this area and a lot of people he worked with. So talkandrockradio.com, the place to find him. And also, of course, call 915-588-1850 for Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate. Patrick is an excellent realtor to go to for El Paso homes for sale or rent. Has done some great work for our family. So again, give him a call, 915-588-1850. Of course, still joined here in studio by Leh Tookey with the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. A lot of people chiming in with us. Robbie Flores, Barbara Given-Baney with the Remember El Paso When Facebook page, Daniel Lehman, and Henry Mee. If you want to check out all those comments, you can, of course, do so. Facebook primary, but also YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where you can find us up on these days. And we've been talking a lot about some of the exhibits that we got and some of the ones that you're also going to be working on. But coming, I think, into the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about a name people may be ever so slightly familiar with, Billy the Kid, and some of his, of course, impacts in his own way, because he wasn't just here for fun. Not that it was much fun, but some very specific purposes involving ranching. So we'll talk more about that here in this next segment. And after this top of the hour news break, you're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to the El Paso History Radio Show. There's another hour to go, so please stay tuned. This hour is brought to you by Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and only Margarita. By Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Tookey, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. We'll be right back after the news, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the Getaway Guru. Join me on The Travel Show every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. We talk all things travel, favorite places, how to travel more and pay less, secret hideaways, discount airline tickets and cruises, and the best travel deals on the planet. It's The Travel Show every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. And I'll tell you where to go and how to get there.
New on Curiosity Stream.
From time to time, we have collisions between asteroids and the Earth.
We track them, we study them, we hope the big one never comes. Don't look up, it's Asteroid Rush. And alligators. They rarely get sick. They even outlasted the dinosaurs. Could they hold the secret to human longevity?
Their blood could have antibacterial applications.
Wade into the investigation on immortal alligators. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's promo code GOLD. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code GOLD for a $5 bonus.
NBC News Radio, I'm Julie Ryan. A bipartisan gun control package is now law. President Biden signed the legislation into law Saturday after receiving it from the House Friday. Before signing the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act into law, President Biden reflected on the numerous mass shootings the country has seen over the past 2 decades.
From Columbine to Sandy Hook to Charleston, Orlando, Las Vegas, Parkland, El Paso, Atlanta, Buffalo, Uvalde, and for the shootings that happen every day in the street that are mass shootings we don't even hear about.
The act enhances background checks, provides funding for mental health services, prevents convicted domestic abusers from purchasing a weapon for 5 years, as well as creates penalties for gun trafficking. U.S. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tina Smith are calling on President Biden to declare a public health emergency. In a New York Times op-ed published Saturday, the Democratic lawmakers said, "We need action and we need it now." They went on to say the country has entered a perilous time that threatens millions of women across this nation. Anti-abortion activists are protesting the only abortion clinic in Mississippi. The owner of Jackson Women's Health Organization vowed Friday to remain open for the next 10 days following the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. A Kentucky soldier will be sentenced next year for plotting to kill fellow soldiers. Jack Crumley has more.
The U.S. Attorney's Office in New York says 24-year-old Ethan Melzer of Louisville, a.k.a. Etil Regad, has pleaded guilty to trying to murder fellow members of his military unit. Melzer joined the Army in 2018, and prosecutors say that was to infiltrate the Army and further the goals of a group called the Order of the Nine Angles, described as an occult-based neo-Nazi white supremacist group that admires both Adolf Hitler and Osama bin Laden. Melzer allegedly shared information about his unit's deployment to Turkey in 2020 with the intent of causing a mass casualty event. He now faces decades in prison when he's sentenced in January.
You're listening to the latest on NBC News Radio.
From the 4-1 Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. As we inch into your weekend, be sure to keep your eyes on the sky. We'll see slightly higher chances for showers and storms during the afternoon and evenings as well.
Make this the year you go to our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com.
iHeartRadio, let's go! A weekend full of superstar performances, never seen before collaborations, and once-in-a-lifetime moments you'll have to see to believe.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday the 24th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Buy your tickets now at AXS.com.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Are you suffering through the summer with high energy bills and a home that never cools down? The Get It Right Solar Show can show you how to save money with a Lumio solar system. The best panels at the best price, and you will receive a free generator when you install a new solar system with Lumio Solar. Call right now, 866-326-1935. That's 866-326-1935. And join us this Saturday at 9 a.m. to learn more on the Get It Right Solar Show.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. This spring, you can share your own observations about nature with scientists and play a critical role in scientific discovery by adding to their data collection. Discover more about citizen science programs such as monitoring weather, observing plants and animals, and more. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690 KTSM presents the second hour of the El Paso History Radio Show with your host, Andrew J. Polk, streaming live at KTSMradio.com. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. By Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and only Margarita. By M1EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Tookey, for El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. And now El Paso History with your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM, starting hour 2 of the show as we do with the El Paso History Radio moment from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk, talking today about the El Paso Museum of Archaeology.
The El Paso Museum of Archaeology explains what was here for thousands of years before the first Europeans came to El Paso in the 1500s. The museum in Northeast El Paso is dedicated to the interpretation and preservation of archaeological and anthropological artifacts through research, exhibits, education, and special programs. The South Gallery features dioramas depicting the everyday life of Indians in the El Paso region of the Southwest, from the Ice Age to the 20th century. They include mammoth hunting, pit houses like those found at El Paso's Keystone site, Pueblo cliff dwellers, and the Mescalero Apache Indian mountain spirit dancers who still perform these ceremonies today. There is also an exhibit of rock art from El Paso's Hueco tanks. The Archaeology Museum's collection in the North Gallery includes pottery, flake stone, ground stone, and perishable objects such as ancient basketry and sandals. The museum is open to inquiries by qualified researchers regarding studies of artifacts and other American Indian items of the museum's collection. The extensive Casas Grandes ceramic collection has been used in the preparation of several master and PhD theses. Visit the El Paso Museum of Archaeology at 4301 Trans Mountain Road. The focus is on the prehistory and culture of the El Paso area and the Southwest. Call 915-212-0421 for directions and operating hours. I'm Jackson Polk with this history moment for the El Paso History Radio Show.
And of course, I mentioned some of our great partners in history there. The great El Paso history work done by Barbara Given Bainey, operator of the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When. Go there for archive pictures galore. They have more than 33,000 members, and it takes a lot to keep such a group running well and running frankly at all sometimes here. So again, if you go on them and take some of their photos or take a look at them, be sure to give them proper credits because they do, again, a lot of work in mentioning this. And of course, we have a lot of people that are involved with them there. Again, the affectionately referred to Barbara Given Bainey, also known as a BGB, as Chief Admin, Owner, and Historian, as well as some of the other ones that are involved in this, including Rick Duncan, Rick Nahara, Margaret D. Smith, as well as Ben Vincent here. So a lot of people that are very important in doing this with the moderators as well. They're always looking for some more assistance there. So if you want to be a part of their team and again, doing their own work and really showing off. Some of the pictures they got over there are great, and I've even got a few up from some of the topic we are on here today. So if you want to check that out again, remember in El Paso when. But again, joined here back in studio, of course, with Leh Tookey, the museum curator for the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. And there's a lot going on in that area. Again, some conflicts with even that history moment there. It's hard for any particular, history museum in this area to not have some overlap, because there's a lot of subjects that are very important here. So we've talked, of course, from some of the ancient eras that you all do cover, with the ways that, including Pueblo peoples dealt with in the area, or the pit houses. And we've actually got a picture of at least one of y'all's exhibits here that show that off as well, because again, covering it is, there's a lot of overlap to be possible there. We're talking about agriculture and the roots of this area, but some of the more modern roots is what actually focus of one of your more recent exhibits, right? The Riding Herd with Billy the Kid, the rise of the cattle industry in New Mexico. And I think there might be some people that might be not totally fault overthinking, but I mean, the rise of the cattle industry. Weren't there always cattle here? And the answer is yes, but essentially.
Exactly. So, of course, there were cattle here before the 1870s, the 1860s in New Mexico, but the actual cattle industry begins right after the Civil War, when there are military installations in New Mexico, and we begin to put our Native American peoples on reservations, trying to tame the land. And I say that it's not a term that I appreciate. I just say that's what they were saying. But
that's
anyway,
what they called it. Yeah.
So we were putting the people on reservations, and then of course we needed the military there to keep them, to maintain those reservations. And so you had to feed these people. You had to feed the soldiers. You had to feed the indigenous people, and so we needed cattle. There were a lot of sheep in New Mexico at that time, but they wanted cattle, and so ranchers who were in Texas, mostly from Texas, began bringing cattle to New Mexico, and so that's really when the cattle industry begins in New Mexico. And so this exhibit, Riding Herd, was really intended to talk about that story, about how did that industry start in New Mexico. And of course, because Billy the Kid is such an important figure in New Mexico history, and because the Lincoln County War is something that everybody kind of thinks they know a lot about, or not everybody, but a lot of people think they know a lot about it, we decided to use those two topics as a vehicle to tell this story of the beginning of the cattle industry. So I like to say that Billy the Kid sort of walks you through the exhibit, in that he's around during all this time. And so we focus on him, and we talk about his life and what was going on with him. And as a young man, he's in Silver City. His mother dies. His stepfather basically abandons him and his brother, and he has to make good. When this exhibit started, I was never a really big fan of Billy the Kid. I always thought he was just kind of a bad guy, and killed people. But the more I learned about him and the more I understood about his life, the more sympathetic I became. I like to say that I was a high school teacher, and if I'd had Billy as a student, he would have been one of my favorites, because that's the kind of kids that I was always attracted to, or those kind of ruffians. But anyway, so that's how we did this exhibit. We follow Billy the Kid through the exhibit. We let him guide us. But basically, it's in two parts. And the first part really is all about the cattle industry, the Goodnight Loving Trail, John Chisholm and John Chisholm's ranch, and how John Chisholm was a really interesting character. And he got into the cattle industry at just the right time, and he got out at just the right time, because what happens to the cattle industry in the big picture is, at first, the cattle men were being able to set the price, how much they wanted for a head of a head of beef, a side of beef. And eventually, because they're sending all of these to the east, to Chicago and Pittsburgh and places in the east, the companies, there were like 3 or 4 companies. And if I could say their names off the top of my head, you would recognize them because some of them are still in existence, the beef packing companies. And they began to set the price. This is how much we'll pay you for your beef. And that's when John Chisholm decided that it was time to get out, and he got out. And so sadly, he died soon after from cancer. But anyway, he was a brilliant businessman and made a lot of money. So that's what the story is about. The second half of the exhibit is really about the Lincoln County War. And that's a story that I don't like to talk about because the specifics, because a lot of people have different ideas, and we tell the story as historically accurate as possible. We do have comments sometimes, well, that's not really the way that went, that really didn't happen. But we do the best we can to tell the history the best we can.
And again, it's fascinating the way that, again, even Billy the Kid, the character of such as, well, again, you kind of describe it, and I think of it as one of the original, historically speaking, anti-heroes before we got into the modern conception of it, and often how he's portrayed. But of course, the reason that they were out here is foundational in its own right, because none of these guys, Billy the Kid or any of the regulators and all these groups, they were not here for their health. They were here because they were drawn here by the promise of compensation because of this cattle industry here. And there's actually a picture that you all have in your exhibit from the New Mexico State University Library, a picture of Fort Sumner as part of, one of these areas that was essentially a draw for this. Again, we're talking about, there's been a lot of conflicts over ranching in different ways over years. People may be familiar with the idea of, the issues with barbed wire fencing and the fencing in of the range. That was its own issue. Or the conflict between, cattle ranchers and sheep ranchers. But in this case, we are talking about, at the very least, very centrally to it, if not entirely, government contracts.
Exactly.
And so, this is one of the areas in which, I don't think there's quite any cattle in this picture, but the draw there to it, both for, feed for the military themselves, and of course, those being monitored by the military, like you said, the reservations, was big business because they had to buy it. And if you're the one that's going to sell it to them, you could make a good chunk of change off of it. I want to say there was even a history program, like someone doing a vague reenactment of the idea of raising cattle and then selling it historically and essentially taking it to a fort in that way. I'll need to remember the name of that program from several years ago. But they took it to the military because they had need for it. They, dry it, salt it, send it off wherever they needed to, and make it part of their rations, essentially.
Right, exactly. So that's what this was all about, and not just raising cattle, raising hay, growing hay for the military, as well as the general store, the mercantile. There were, there was that was part of that. The battle in Lincoln County was who was going to own the store, the mercantile, and who was going to get the business for that. So basically, once again, it comes down to capitalism and people making money, and it was a big deal to have a government contract. And when somebody came and got into your territory and started fighting for trying to get that contract for themselves, them's fighting words, and that's what happened. So the Lincoln County War, of course, is the what happens in the story of that incident are pretty well known, and the numbers of how many people were killed is questionable, but so we don't argue those facts. We let other people have those ideas. So.
Yeah, there, even within history, there is some open to interpretation. Absolutely. Like, why did they actually do this? You start getting into a certain point, what I consider like Hatfield and McCoy type of situations. Well, who wronged who and who did what, and was this really the worst thing ever? In any case, the idea of that, what really again led to it, is one of the more fascinating things that you're again delving into this with this exhibit, Riding Herd with Billy the Kid, because again, the concept of the cattle industry not really being present essentially pre-Civil War, and that, again, the explosion of it within the territory now known as New Mexico made it very much more possible. It set the stage for this, literally.
Exactly. It did.
So again, the focus on that and the way that ranching has evolved throughout the areas, again, it may be very... I remember, I want to say it's actually out at Cattleman's, Indian Cliffs Ranch, where they talk about the idea of the carrying capacity of that particular area of land, about 3 per, dozen, 10 acres or something, very sparse, and there will be better and worse areas for ranching. But those are the kind of facts and figures and why these huge spans of area made a level of sense. But it's, again, fascinating that it had never really been explored for that purpose to the level that, like you'd expect in Texas before that point.
Right. So Texas was a huge had a cattle industry.
Mm-hmm.
So and of course Texas is settled much earlier than New Mexico. Well, I take that back. New Mexico was settled early very early. Some of the earliest history in our country happens in New Mexico.
Oh, of course.
But by Anglos, of course, it was settled later than Mexico,
Yeah.
or than Texas. And so
The waves of settlement and the
exactly.
different ones. Yes.
Exactly. So, so most of the cattle that came to New Mexico came from Texas, and that's a whole nother story about bringing cattle in from Texas. But we won't tell that story today.
Fair enough.
That's the
Yeah.
next exhibit, maybe.
Absolutely. Here. So we got to actually take that next break here already. So coming out of this break, we're going to continue talking with her again. Our guest today is from the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum, the curator, Leh Tookey. Talk more about that and a whole lot more, and checking in on some of the, of course, comments coming in as well. All right, after this break with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Donovan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the one and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152. The El Paso History Show with Andrew J. Polk is 10 a.m. this Saturday. An honorary consul of Spain, Martha Vera, talks about Spanish aid to the American Revolution. The El Paso History Show is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Canutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest for gifts and decor, and by M1EP Management Corporation, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on News Radio 690 and streaming live on Facebook and YouTube.
One-on-One with Susan Eisen.
I was born in El Paso, and it's always been my home. Get to know us. We'll be your most trusted resource for buying jewelry and for all your jewelry needs.
When it comes to a jeweler you can trust, visit SusanEisen.com. One-on-One with Susan Eisen.
It takes me hundreds of hours each year for my continuing education on grading and pricing diamonds, and our focus is on providing value for you.
When it comes to the best diamond advice, visit SusanEisen.com.
Research shows listeners don't like it when ads interrupt their music. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual customizes home insurance, we made this ad optional. If you want to skip this ad, remove your left earphone. Liberty Mutual customizes home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
If you're missing this informative ad, you must love wasting your cash.
It's the easy and smart way to save.
Now it's all been said, so if that earphone was out, put it back in your head.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required. Refund available for 60 days after purchase.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to 4hims.com/joy. At Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation and discreet shipping if prescribed. Love your results or your money back. To start your free online visit, go to 4hims.com/joy. That's FORHIMS.com/JOY.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Got to tell you a little bit what was coming up for you on the next show here. You may notice we're getting towards the end of the month, and the start of next month is an ever so slightly important holiday for, well, the country that we do now reside in, as much as we talk about the history of some of the previous settlement. We're talking, of course, next weekend about the July 4th holiday that comes right at the end of the weekend. And so we're going to be talking about that, plus the Borderland and Spanish colonial contributions to the cause of American liberty with Martha Vera, Honorary Consul of Spain, and even having some contact from Spain itself and how even it's celebrated over there at this moment. So tracing a whole lot of that history and through this area. So we'll be focusing on that next week. Of course, something else we got to tell you about, one of our other great sponsors here and helping us promote El Paso history, Mission Del Rey Southwest. You guys have a great selection of a lot of different items, souvenirs, jewelry, gifts, and decor, whether with out-of-town visitors or just for yourself to find some great flavor in a lot of senses, both in the decorative and literal sense. They have a great selection of local products that are always being refreshed there. So again, missiondelrey.com to find their full selection. They've got a whole operation to ship around the world. But if you're local and want to go check them out, their 12,000 square foot showroom on Leh Trevino, you can find them missiondelrey.com or call 915-440-2140. 915-440-2140 and mention the El Paso History Radio Show for a discount. But again, joined here in studio right now as we are this hour talking about the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum with Leh Tookey, with the, of course, curator of the museum. They've got a couple of questions that have come in on some of the subjects that we have discussed here, primarily over on the social media. They have a question come in a little bit earlier. Barbara Givenbany asking that the Dog Canyon Ranch, could this be the one that still stands on the range, Oliver Lee's ranch, when we were talking about the home on the range area part of it with the again, what is now part of the White Sands Missile Range. So what would be your thoughts on that? Again, Oliver Lee's ranch in Dog Canyon, was that a part of it, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as far as I know, and I'm not an expert on Oliver Lee by any means, but as far as I know, his ranch was not part of the takeover. It was all on the other side of, on the Alamogordo side.
Right.
So not part of that first of that military takeover, unless it's possible that he owns some land. We talk about Oliver Lee and, the whole Albert Fountain and that whole connection. And of course, that's all on this side of the range. So it's possible. I'm not going to say no, but I know that the part of the ranch of his ranch where I've been, the Dog Canyon piece, and the Oliver Lee State Park, that would not have been part of the White Sands Missile Range land.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I think I've done some camping back many years ago in the Dog Canyon area, and that would be essentially the way I always think of it, is that you either start running into White Sands once you head north from the northeast side of El Paso, or once you go in through that gap and heading out towards essentially Alamogordo over that pass in the mountains, and then you are particularly that nice overlook right off the highway where they have those some of the I think it's the Nike rockets that are positioned there that that overlook part of the base, but really part of the history and museum there on the White Sands facility.
Right, and that's right where the Cox Ranch was, where at the top of that at the top of the Oregons. Is that what you're talking about? Right.
I forget the name of that. Is that Victoria's Pass or?
It's San Augustine.
St. Augustine Pass.
Yeah.
There we go.
And,
Thank you.
And the Cox Ranch was called the San Augustine Ranch. So, and they still own some of that land out there. The Coxes do. So, Mark Cox lives out there now. That's he's the next generation that's on the ranch. So.
And a couple other interesting questions came in. William Henry Me with a couple of comments here saying that Thomas Jaron in his book Germans in the Southwest says the Germans in Santa Fe sent money and arms to Tunstall in the Lincoln County War, and that they were opposing the Santa Fe ring that financed what they called the Ruidoso ring against Tunstall. Again, the financing and the influence on these different areas. Again, the whole armed conflicts, it's an interesting situation, because the reason the Army was here overall was because policing wasn't really totally a thing just yet. Also, the whole idea of frontiers versus the very settled borders, the way we have them considered today. Again, a lot of modern concepts were coming into place, but weren't totally there yet. There's a reason you don't necessarily see so much activity of the U.S. military outside of essentially training within the continental United States anymore, because their role was very different at that point in time.
Well, sure. I mean, New Mexico was wild country. It was being newly inhabited by Anglos, and so they were, they were attacked by indigenous peoples, and so they were trying to take the land, and of course the whole Lincoln County War is the Tunstall McSween versus the Murphy Dolan. The Murphy Dolan side of this. They were there first. They had the store, they had the contracts, and then Tunstall McSween came in. And I don't know anything about it, the German connection. So that's an interesting, something interesting that I haven't read about or know anything about. So it doesn't surprise me. People were taking sides. There was corruption, as there always is when money is involved. It's all about power and money. I always say, when it comes right down to it, it's all about power and money.
Quite often here. And Angie Salazar mentioning that her husband's great-grandfather, Eugenio Salazar, related to Billy the Kid, was a member of the Regulators, correcting her spelling there. Because, of course, the Regulators are the ones most focused on in most of the movies you'll see on the issue, of course, on this. But it's an interesting one. But one more comment I wanted to get to here from William Henry Mee as well, that on the French grist stone is fascinating. He's, again, a resident of the Agua Fria village, an agriculture area since 1640, maybe 1603, with a pre-European history going back, 9,500 years. So I wonder how the elders did what they did. I found Juan Esteban Arellano's book, Ancient Agriculture, based on Gabriel de Herrera's 1538 book, commissioned by the King of Spain to instruct the colonists on how to be farmers and ranchers, since they were primarily gold seekers. Interesting point there. And also, Flavio Jimenez mentioning the Young Guns good movie. It's again, historically speaking, that's any movie you're going to see is going to be, well, take it with a grain/boulder of salt. But sure, if it's entertaining, that's good in its own right, I do suppose here.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not a big aficionado. So I think I saw Young Guns, the first one, many years ago. So, but there's, Billy the Kid was really made famous by dime novels and Hollywood westerns.
Oh yeah.
So that's where that story grew, I should say.
Yep. Good old before him, of course, and then in the movie, of course, Emilio Estevez as playing that. I mean, that's all I think a lot of people think when they think of either that or, of course, the picture of Billy the Kid that constantly makes the rounds. Are those two images, and I think there'd be probably more than a couple people out there thinking, wait, that's not Emilio Estevez, that's not Billy the Kid. Just the way that's commonly shown here. But of course, that's why we focus on the history, to get to some of the core facts and figures here. Though I still appreciate the movies in their own right, because they can be an introduction into the idea of the stories, and then as long as you're not too disappointed when you saw the actual history that, oh no, they didn't do whatever triple double flip onto the back of a horse and then blow up a town riding away while looking away from the explosion, because cool guys don't look at explosions kind of thing. No, that didn't actually happen in history.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I'm not a big, I don't watch a lot of movies, I guess, about history. I don't know. I've been disappointed many times in my life. I remember watching Pearl Harbor and just being really disappointed. But
again, great spectacles, and I appreciate them if they help introduce people to history, as long as they, again, keep it in perspective here. So again, that is Leh Tookey, curator for the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. We're going to talk more about that, some more of their exhibits and programming, and what coming next, of course, for the museum, with all the stuff going on after this break, with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
M1 EP Management Corporation is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, invest in real estate. M1 EP manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call 915-592-4549, 915-592-4549.
Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's promo code GOLD. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code GOLD for a $5 bonus.
New on Curiosity Stream, he allows them their riches
Putin has to be the richest of the rich.
in exchange for their loyalty.
The oligarchs have supported someone for president that they underestimate.
The illicit affair between Russia's elite and the man who rules them on Putin and the oligarchs. And World War II Normandy, an obscure battle training session takes a tragic turn. Uncover the one secret military catastrophe on the secret D-Day disaster. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come to my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
If you're fed up with cable news, it's time for Greta Van Susteren. Greta is back with the real news on Newsmax. Tune in at 6 p.m. Eastern tonight to watch The Record with Greta Van Susteren and our new lineup with Rob Schmidt, Eric Bowling, and more. Newsmax is on all major cable systems and streaming platforms. Or download the free Newsmax app on your phone. Watch Greta Van Susteren tonight. Make the switch to Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, beat the largest timeshare company in federal court and has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-408-4040. That's 800-408-4040.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Doniphan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Tookey, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show. Got to tell you what's coming up only this week only in El Paso Inc. Why discount stores are primed for popularity and a growth throughout the El Paso area, and a story of perseverance. How a Miss El Paso USA contestant is on the road to Miss Texas USA, and over 1,000 students gathered under the bright blue skies of northern El Paso for the Spaceport America Cup. El Paso's business journal, El Paso Inc., is available for home or business delivery and online at elpasoinc.com. You can also check out our promos running over there for this program weekly in their air and their space as well. So again, joining us here on air in studio, we do have Leh Tookey, the curator for the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. We've talked a lot about some of the upcoming exhibitions, things you got going on right now, and people can go see. But of course, there is the main gallery part of the museum that has kind of your consistent exhibits, again, tracking a little bit more of that span of history than any specific topic about that, from the prehistoric era to the Pueblo area to the, again, colonial and modern era. And you trace all of those different kind of waves and eras of history, right?
we have a pit house. We talk about the Mogollon period. We have the Spanish colonial period, a home from the Spanish colonial period. We do talk about we have Home Sweet Home, which is a 1920s 2 rooms from a 1920s kind of a typical home in the Mesilla Valley. And we have a mercantile that where you can see kind of what a store was like, what it was like to go to the store in the first part of the 20th century. We have a little bit of some railroad history there as well. And of course, we have a section, we call it Wheels and Gears, and it's really basically open storage because we have a lot of big pieces of equipment, a lot of wagons, and so we have some pieces in there, a chuck wagon, a car, an old truck, a sheep wagon. And what you're seeing there, we have a Wells Fargo stagecoach, and we also have a hearse. That hearse is sort of a historic piece of equipment. And it used to belong to, at the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century, it belonged to a women's organization in Las Cruces, and they owned that hearse. They bought it, and they kind of restored it. It has a long life, and it's been many things. It had been a farm wagon, and it had been, but they fixed it up and they rented it out. So if you died in the first decade or two of the 1900s of the 20th century, you had the option of renting a hearse, and it cost you $10, and $5 of that went to the livery with the guy that took care of the horses, and $5 of it went to this women's club, and they built a park, and they did a lot of things for the city. And so the story goes that this is the hearse that carried Pat Garrett to his grave after he was killed. He was murdered, I guess, shot in the back. I guess that's murder. Yeah. And so that's the story, that this hearse carried Pat Garrett. Now, as a historian, I'm always a bit of a cynic. And so I think maybe that because his family was pretty broke when he died. In fact, that's probably why he was murdered, because he was having some money issues. So because it cost $10 to rent that hearse, and it's probably more likely that his family just put him in the back of the hay wagon and took him over to the cemetery, but who knows? So, it's a great story, and I'm always okay with a great story. There is no exact evidence, there's no imagery or anything of Pat Garrett's casket being in the back of that hearse, but it's possible.
I mean, and we're talking about from, let's just call it the late 19th century overall to today, the change in value of there over, just doing a rough calculation on Google right now, to roughly today, let's say, it's taking it to 1880 as the year that comes up here, would be approximately $280 today. So, yeah, particularly for a broke family, that was not necessarily anything to sneeze at. Exactly. So that chunk of change at that point in time.
Because they were paying for a grave site, of course, and I believe the stone that is there on his grave is probably from the time period. So who knows? And you can believe that if you want to, and you can be a cynic like me if you want to. And it is a great story, though. I will tell you that Cupid that's on top of that hearse is not original, and it would be my wish that we would take that off, but so far we haven't. So it's pretty annoying to me as a historian.
For the historical accuracy part of it, absolutely. Here, we were talking a bit before the show here, because I had seen what I thought was either a very similar, if not the same, and come to find out it is the same. This was previously in the front lobby, essentially, of the county sheriff's department for years on its own. So, we're wondering about the provenance of this. That's where it came from most recently.
And it was donated to us by the sheriff's department, and during COVID, so we had to arrange to get this during the kind of the tough times of COVID, when you couldn't go anywhere and you couldn't do anything, and we managed to get it. Our collections manager and the guys on our staff are pretty amazing, and they can do just about anything. So they were able to get it into the museum, and we have it on display. Another really interesting piece that we have at the museum, we don't have a photo of, is the Bell Ranch chuck wagon. So the Bell Ranch is a really big, huge ranch up in the east part of New Mexico, famous historic ranch, and we actually have the chuck wagon. One of their, I'm sure they had more than one, but one of their chuck wagons, and so I think that, you couldn't have had the cattle industry, you couldn't have had cattle drives without chuck wagons, and so that's an interesting piece to see as well.
Yeah, I've read a lot of stories because that was a kind of a thing, I guess, for me growing up, reading stories about cattle drives and how it worked. I mean, you might think like, well, you're running, the beef on the hoof, so to speak. Why you can't just take one of the cows and eat it? And that is super not how it worked out there. You had to bring the provisions in a way to effectively provision because you can only live off of drop biscuits for so long.
Probably true. You could, once in a while, they would, something would happen to an animal.
Oh, sure.
They would get hurt, or then they would, slice it up and eat what they could. But it's pretty hard to get rid of a beef. It wouldn't last very long out in the hot sun in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't do that on a regular basis. Plus, that's one less beef they could sell when they got to the end to the train. So, but they ate biscuits and beans, and they had canned fruit. It's kind of interesting when you see what they actually ate. And of course, the cook was a major character.
Oh yeah,
probably at least the second best paid person on the cattle drive. The highest paid was probably the main guy. I can't even think what the term was for what he was called, but
cattle boss.
The cattle boss, something like that works for me. And the wrangler as well, the person that was in charge of the horses. Another interesting thing about a cattle drive that you might not know is most cowboys did not own their own horses.
Mm-hmm.
They owned their own saddles, but they didn't own their own horses. The owner of the cattle provided horses for them, and they needed more than one a day, and that's why they would have the wrangler would provide horses several a day for each of the cowboys. So
I mean, because they were riding hard in a lot of ways.
Exactly, yeah, and they called it a remuda, which was the herd of horses, basically. And I think that's kind of interesting because we all think about cowboys and riding their horses, but a lot of them didn't have their own horses. So.
Yeah, and they needed multiple of them because this was not easy work. I do not envy of that. And even though we were saying that it wasn't, I mean, there's still a lot of that happens to this day because there are, modern vehicles, but even, I mean, as much as people now may be worried about the price of gas and thinking about, well, what does it take for me to get a horse? There are people already been doing that. Essentially, the line never stopped. It was never everything converted. And now the thing about going back to horses, there have been people. Heck, I've seen driving out in reaches of New Mexico, seeing a literal gentleman out on his horse doing a small-ish herd on a fenced-in lot. But, I mean, that still there's a reason it's called the heritage. It still exists to this day.
Absolutely.
So that's not even just part of course, what you all focus on out there. You have some of those modern exhibitions. Again, the picture that we've had of the cow with the windmill out front is not by any means a statue. That's a literal animal that you all have out there on the lot, as well as some of the other things that you all have done and are looking at an eye to returning to. Again, post-COVID, a lot of things going on, but you have not just these exhibitions, but events that go on, and you do specifically have one coming up in July, right?
Exactly. In July, we have something we're trying new this year. It's called Summertime on the Farm. $10 for a carload of people. So pack as many people in your vehicle as you can and come on out for $10 from 10 to 2 on Sunday or Saturday, July 16th. We'll have games and food trucks, and there's a bike parade in the morning and music. So if you want to know more about that, you can visit our website and find out more about that event. That we're doing this year instead of our Ice Cream Sunday event, which we've done in the past, because we are opening a new exhibit in our dairy barn in October. And so we're kind of moving the ice cream stuff to October, even though that may sound kind of odd, but
it'll still probably be warm enough around here. It'll still be
great time for ice cream in southern New Mexico. So that's coming up in October, and there's not a real a set date yet for that.
Okay. And so, of course, people can find this nmfarmandranchmuseum.com, NM as in New Mexico, farmandranchmuseum.org. So people want to find it there. And again, you have kind of rotating things you have. Again, we've got the picture of the goats and the cows and other things, including such as, again, previously having happened, spinning exhibitions and people demonstrating that. So you all have that kind of programming. Again, getting back into the swing of things is still very much a topic around here, but this is the kind of things that you all have done and have an eye on getting back to more of as much as possible.
Right. We have things going on every day at the museum, and we are back in the swing of things. And one thing I do want to mention is that we do have live animals on the South 20. We have 7 breeds of cattle, 2 different breeds of sheep right now. We have a donkey, we have horses, and so lots of things to see, baby cows and baby cattle, calves, I guess.
There you go. Yeah.
And so lots of things to see at the farm and ranch.
So the South 20, we've talked a lot about what you got inside the building. Describe a little bit more what the grounds are and going around it for a minute.
Okay, so we have, like I said, 7 brands of cattle. We have the history of cattle in New Mexico. We start out with the Corriente cattle, which are the Spanish cattle, the same breed of cattle that the Spanish brought when they came in the 1600s. We have then the Longhorn cattle, which are the cattle that came from the Corriente. They, over many years, mostly in southern Texas, they bred themselves up to be a different kind of cow. And then we have the first European breed that was in New Mexico, which was the Hereford cattle. We have some Hereford, we have some Horned Hereford, which are my favorite breed. We have Angus cattle. We have Angus, of course, came from Scotland. We have Charolais cattle, which are French. And then let's see, I think that's not 7, but we have the Brangus, of course, which is a cross between the Angus and the Brahman, and we have an American Brahman, which is the first beef cattle that was created. It was bred in the United States, so it was actually bred in the United States. So lots of different types of cattle to see. Everything like from the little Corrientes to the big Brahman. It's real interesting. And then we also have churro sheep, which the churro sheep are the sheep that came with the Spanish. So we have a small herd of churro and a small flock of the Deboulet sheep, which were created. That breed was created on the Jones Ranch here in New Mexico in the early part of the 20th century. So it was actually a breed of sheep that was I don't know, created isn't the right word, but that was
I'll buy it.
Created. There you go. Here in New Mexico. So lots of different, and that is the history of agriculture in New Mexico. You can follow it through the animals that we have.
That's true, because farm work, I don't think anyone is totally under the delusion that it's easy work. And so often having animals, whether it be what's the phrase here, that the chicken contributed, but the pig was committed to the breakfast. I mean, sure, that's an aspect of it, but also, of course, beasts of burden, them doing the work on the farm. Anything to make it more viable and easier was often very much sought after, which is why, among other things, the horse or even the draft mule may have been the most prized animal on any particular farm. Sure.
And the milk cow, I think. But right, definitely lots of mules here early on. I think that's really interesting that we had a lot of mules in New Mexico that were used as draft animals.
Exactly. So that's some of the history there. So we're due for that next break right now. Coming out of this break, tell a little bit more about, of course, what they got going on at the museum and close out the show. So stay tuned for more on the El Paso History Radio program here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Doniphan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the one and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Doniphan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
Pool season is here, but open roles got you underwater? Check out Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Tune in to the El Paso History Radio Show this Saturday, 10 to noon, here on 690 AM with your host, Andrew J. Polk, brought to you in part by Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan Drive. That's the El Paso History Radio Show, 10 a.m. Saturday, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
M1EP.com, superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Illegal dumping, it's garbage, and it's costing everybody in El Paso, especially when trash is dumped in stormwater dams, channels, and even canals. That blocks drainage, which can lead to flooding or worse. But it can be prevented. Together, we can solve this problem by disposing of waste at proper sites and reporting illegal dumpers in the act. Let's take pride in El Paso. Call 311 to report illegal dumping and visit don'ttrashep.com to learn more.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for and there they go. Almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg Crypto is the new daily podcast from Bloomberg and iHeartRadio that tackles everything from Bitcoin to Bored Apes. Each weekday, Bloomberg reporters and experts from every corner of the industry discuss the latest in cryptocurrencies and explore how it impacts our lives, our politics, and our culture.
How many machines would I need to buy, not that I will, to kind of mine Bitcoin effectively?
Like tens of thousands of machines.
Tens of thousands. That's way more than I was expecting.
Listen to Bloomberg Crypto on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Tookey, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk, also having been joined here in the studio by Leh Tookey, the curator for the museum and all the exhibits we got going on. So again, if people want to find it, what's that number they should punch into their GPS for the address?
4100 Dripping Springs Road.
And essentially, you're looking for the university exit off I-25, so take I-10 all the way up there. Make sure you take that right turn onto the I-25. I've made that mistake myself once, and we won't talk about that. In any case, just make sure you get the right place. And a lot of people saying that they were not aware of it. Now they're going to make sure to go visit, including Flaca Jimenez and Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes pointing out that, yes, the section of the Rio Grande has water in it again there in Las Cruces. And Bruce Berman saying that drive by there often every week and never been there. Got to fix that. Sounds wonderfully interesting, as well as others chiming in, including Barbara Given-Baney, appreciating the show. So we appreciate all that. We are going to head out to Pepe's, which is kind of on the way back, at least on your way back to the museum there. So we will be out there here this afternoon if you want to join us out there. But again, a lot of the programming, a lot of the things going on with it out there at the museum. So please check them out. And again, their website to see all the events going on as much as possible. Again, that is nmfarmandranchmuseum.org. So Leh, thank you very much for having come in to talk to us about all the things you got going on at the museum.
Well, thank you for having me, Andrew.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, and we'll see you all next week on the El Paso History Radio Show. You might actually find me out at HAM, the field day, here in a bit, but stay tuned for all that, and we'll see you next week on the El Paso History Radio Show. Have a great one, y'all.
Thank you for listening to the El Paso History Radio Show. We hope you'll join us again next Saturday morning, 10 to noon. And be sure to tell a friend about us. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. By Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and Only Margarita. By M1 EP Management Corporation. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Leh Tookey, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Thank you for joining us from the studios of News Radio 690, KTSM AM El Paso.
As the country bounces back from COVID and mask mandates are lifted, your business needs a lift too. Promote your company right here, right now. Radio ads connect with 93% of Americans every week. That's more than Google, more than Facebook, more than TV. In fact, radio reaches 20% more millennials than TV. Want more of the people you want to talk to all in one place? Visit iHeartAdvertising.com and get AM and FM working for you. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
New on Curiosity Stream.
From time to time, we have collisions between asteroids and the Earth.
We track them, we study them, we hope the big one never comes. Don't look up, it's asteroid rush. And alligators. They rarely get sick, they even outlasted the dinosaurs. Could they hold the secret to human longevity?
Their blood could have antibacterial applications.
Wade into the investigation on immortal alligators. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Waters, and this is not a drill.
This is the real deal. Pink Floyd's Roger Waters' This Is Not a Drill North American tour rolls across the U.S.
How would you like to join me on tour?
Here's your chance to win a VIP trip for two to Las Vegas to see Roger Waters live in concert, first class airfare, front row tickets, and more from AEG.
Wow.
Text the nationwide keyword Roger to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's Roger to 200-200.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve. As they move out, stand firm, and take fire.